you're on tour now, so I'm actually wondering what happens before a tour. How do you prepare for a tour? I mean, you were very prepared for our thing when we first played.
Oh, yeah. No, I have to think about the music for sure. And luckily, we've toured a lot with Hudson, the group that's on this trip. And oh yeah, I just practice the tunes and try and remember them. And yeah.
How do you practice?
Just pretend I'm playing with whoever I'm playing, and just sit down by myself and try and remember the music, and and then of course it leads to other stuff, and I just start playing, and there'll be something I'm working on that I practice, and just try and imagine playing with other people, and then that leads you to something, and you start listening to the sound of your own instrument and sound reproduction and all that.
Yeah. Did you always do that, like playing along with records? Is that something you?
I never played along with records much.
Oh, okay.
Because there was always like somebody getting in my way. What are they doing singing? I'm trying to take a guitar solo. Yeah, no, I listened to records all the time, but I never played along with them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do that a little bit more now. Once in a while now, I've found there are certain stereo albums that were made in the 60s when they were just starting to make stereo, where they'll be just like the solo on a jazz record. The soloist will be on one side and the rhythm section is on the other. And I like to play along with that. It's like the ultimate play along. And I found one Wes Montgomery record with Paul Chambers and Jimmy Cobb and Wynton Kelly, where it's during the guitar solos, you can just play along with the rhythm section. And
Great.
so sometimes I do that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I always used to play along with your records.
You did?
Sure, man.
Well, Pablo, maybe this. Yeah, I'm sorry.
On there. No, because when we eventually played in the end, it felt like
yeah, you knew my sound.
I feel like, it felt like when you see somebody on television like that you like a lot, you see him very often, and then you see him in real life. It actually feels like you've met before, but you haven't.
Absolutely, yeah. And you're used to their, where do I know you from? But it's like that with music, and it was like that playing with people you've listened to on record a lot. Sure.
How was it the first time you played with Jack DeJohnette? Was it on Time on My Hands or?
No, it was before that. Well, the first time I ever played with him, and I was a huge Jack DeJohnette fan, but it was in the 70s, late 70s sometime, and I was playing with this quartet. I'm trying at a club called Sweet Basil, and the other guitar. There was two guitars, me and Jack Wilkins, and then Jack DeJohnette came and sat in for a whole set with us, which was thrilling, And Time in My Hands was after all that, way after that. So I had played with him a few times, and the first record was that one with Zbigniew Seifert.
Oh man,
that I think you know about that. Yeah, that was like 78 or something. It was early.
Record with Jack. Wow, I love that record, man. I just
Wow. It was so great for me because it was Jack DeJohnette and Eddie Gomez and Richie Byrack. What a rhythm section!
Yeah,
and I was so excited to be there and to be with that band.
Wow,
yeah,
amazing.
And and so we did a couple of projects together, recordings that he was on, and just playing with him today after not playing with him for a few months, just at sound check. It's the sound. I just like to listen to his sound too. Just the way he hits the drums, and it's really might as well be a piano or something. There's so much music in there.
Are there certain things that you can put your finger on that you can say this is what I've particularly learned from Jack by listening to him, but also playing and touring with him?
Well, I guess let it go. Let it flow out of you, and it's so much fun to do that with Jack because he's supportive and a voice at the same time always. And when I first started to play with Jack, I really thought, wow, I'm going to get lost because I had all his records, and I thought and he plays so much stuff and it's so complicated, and he doesn't give a lot of downbeats sometimes, and he doesn't mark the phrases in the normal way. Then I started to play with him, and it was all totally fine because I realized that he knows everything I'm doing, because he plays piano and knows the chords and knows jazz music and music so well. And that's another great thing about Jack is it's just music, right? He loves Sam Cooke and Otis Redding and all kinds of popular music, that he really knows, and reggae and rock, real rock stuff, and all kinds of music. And so he knows so much that when you play with him, I think after a while I stopped worrying that I was going to get lost and said, if I just play, he's going to be cool, because he'll actually go with you, and I started to worry less about marking the tempo or marking the getting lost. I worried less about that. And then playing free with him, we had so much fun because he's really committed to that too, in metric music as well, and one of the greats, man. It's I just cherish every moment, with all these great players.
Amazing.
Yourself included, and the Pablo Held trio too.
Thanks so much, man.
Yeah.
One of the great things I think I've learned from you is how to, I always appreciated about you that when you play a melody or if you play lines, every note feels different and sounds different. And I'm really wondering, I learned that about you when I listened to you, but even more so when I played with you and saw, how you interpret a melody and play over certain chords. And I'm really wondering how you arrived at this. Is that something that you put a lot of thought into, or is it something that you actually noticed yourself after a while that you were doing this?
Well, I noticed after a while, but I've just been, aware that every note comes out differently. And at some point, you're like, why can't they all be the same? I'm playing, in the beginning. And then you say, oh, wait a minute, that's just the way the instrument and I work. They come out different. You start to use what the instrument can do and what you can do and what you hear. And for a string instrument like the guitar, where you can bend and articulate notes, there's so many possibilities. And then you just start to think about that and all the music that can come out, the vocal sounding things of a guitar and the different places to hit it. And,
Yeah.
and a lot of it is just hearing all the great players, and great singers, and just all the great music, using the different shadings that we have. But it's sort of like talking, right? In that right now, when you and I are talking, each word comes out differently. We don't talk exactly the same like a robot. It all comes out, and the way you move your head and your neck, and each sound is different. How long it is, you don't even think about it, and that's the same when we're playing on our instrument.
Mm-hmm. So would you say now you're working even more so working on expanding this instead of working on
Yeah.
making every note sound the same?
Well, maybe it's both at once, actually. But I can't make every note sound the same. I've tried, and that doesn't even happen really. So yeah, I am embracing what happens with my fingers, and using that. And at the same time, trying to get command of the instrument, but also, yeah, using what happens, what actually happens when you play, and then trying to make the most of it and make expressive sounds that you like
Mm.
out of it.
Yeah.
And allowing things to happen, you know.
Mm-hmm. I I felt like that record with Larry Goldings and Brian Blade and Scott Colley, A Moment's Peace.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
It was to me it sounded like, maybe it's different for you, but to me it sounded like, in terms of this difference in notes and bending and everything, that felt like
Hmm.
another big leap for me. I was like, wow.
You know, yeah, I think it was. I mean, yeah, maybe for me too. You know, I've gotten more into that, you know, and bending and trying to get the vocal aspects of the instrument. You know, I mean, the guitar world is crazy because a lot of people um, really separate different kinds of music, you know,
Mm,
and and they say, oh, there's jazz guitar, which is this kind of orthodox way to play, and then there's, you know, rock and roll guitar, which is this crazy thing that exists, you know, and kids get into the
mm,
aspect of the guitar, and you know, so I'm trying to, you know, use. You know, actually, the real straight ahead orthodox jazz guitar to me is a little restrictive. You know, that pure hollow body guitar sound, and because there's so much other cool stuff that the guitar can do,
mm,
and uh, and so, you know, maybe in recent years I've been more into that,
yeah.
allowing that language to come through, you know, and blues, bending the notes, and also just, I mean, you know, when you think of all the Middle Eastern things
Mm,
that a string can do, starting in India and across all the, you know, Middle East, and singing, you know, it all sounds like, you know, Indian and, you know, Moroccan and Arabic singing, you know, and so just allowing that to come into my playing somewhat,
yeah.
and sometimes I have to remember to let that happen, you know.
Mm. And interpreting a melody,
Mm-hmm.
another big lesson I got from you
Mm-hmm.
through playing and listening to you. Where do you think, or who are your role models for that, or used to be your role models? Who is it now? You know, because we used to play that Joni Mitchell song, and I
Ah, yeah.
melody like that before or after from anybody. You know,
Wow.
well, it's also not a
Yeah.
common played tune, but still, you saw the lead sheet I made, and you knew
Mm-hmm.
the song from back then in the '60s. You told me. Uh,
Well, yeah. So I remembered Joni, you know, um, and maybe some of that came through. Yeah.
mm,
But you know, the thing is, you asked me where does that come from? It comes from the very beginning of music. It's ancient, you know. It's from, you know. But in jazz, I always did love, especially the players that sang on their instruments, and you know, Louis Armstrong and Lester Young. It's unbelievable, you know, and all the, you know, and then there were a lot of guys that I love who play a lot of notes,
mm,
but most of them still had that. Like Coltrane definitely has that, you know, and uh, there's Charlie Parker had a beautiful singing thing where he was like a crooner too, you
yeah,
know, and Coltrane, all those guys. I mean, I think all those guys, they liked Frank Sinatra too,
yeah,
you know, and certainly Miles, and then the guys, you know, that are in jazz that are more associated with lyricism too. Um, yeah, but there's so much in piano too. You know, the people that bring it out of the piano, like yourself, and you know, even I remember there was this one record um, where Charlie Parker plays Around Midnight. It's the only one, and Bud Powell's on it with him. And I had that early on, and Bud Powell's solo. It's like, wow,
yeah.
that's another level
It's a night in
of
Birdland, right?
it's a live thing. Yeah,
Night in
it's
Birdland.
yeah, yeah. And Bud was phenomenal on that one.
Yeah, that round I'm solo. That's really amazing.
And that's, you know, it's blues and lyrical, you know, and So it's not just the horns that can do that. The piano obviously can do it too, and sure Bill Evans and Herbie Hancock.
Yeah. I'm wondering, and I think we talked about this before, but I'm wondering about your process of composing.
Mm-hmm.
You told me a little bit that you do demos for your bands
Uh,
at times when you compose new stuff. But how do you
man,
start? What's the
yeah, I know. That's the hard part. Is how do you start? And so what I do now is record myself
hmm
on my phone. It's so easy with a little thing on the phone. But I used to do it just on a little cassette player or whatever. Is I'd fish around on my guitar. First of all, it helps me. The very beginning is it helps me to know what kind of piece I'd like to make.
that helps?
Okay.
Okay.
What kind? Just very general. Like something fast, something really slow, something major, something minor,
Yeah.
and then with the most basic thing, and then I start and I just record something improvising
Mm.
like that, and I turn off the machine after a couple of seconds, and then do it again, and then do it again, and then listen, and finally maybe I'll find something that is a cadence or a little feeling of something, and then I write it down,
hmm
and then sometimes I put it away and
hmm
don't try to. I usually try to do something to go along with that. You know, another fragment of a sentence
Right.
to go after that first fragment,
hmm
and a lot of times I can't get anything or I don't like it, and so I put that aside and then come back hours, days later to it, and then try and finish it, and then eventually build up a piece. And sometimes I'll get a little piece in one shot, but normally not. Normally I just get one part of it and then add to it. And most of these tunes are relatively simple, and yeah, I find that's good when it comes out like that, you know,
Yeah.
uh, fast.
hmm
That when I labor over something and try and build it, from each, oh no, that's not right. Oh, this next note. Oh no, try that. And then I'll get this string of things that yeah, it makes no sense, So it's more like I like to improvise and make up some simple thing that might have some nice thing to it, that makes it different from just a simple thing that's just nothing.
Yeah, I find your tunes very inviting to play,
Yeah. Oh, good. Yeah. Thank you.
and also challenging at the same time. So that's a
Mm-hmm.
paradox in a way. I feel,
Mm-hmm.
it's because uh, they're in a way easy to play, but then at certain times they are not because there might be an uneven length of bars or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Uh,
And I try to do the uneven ones. That's supposed to be natural. You
yeah,
know what I mean? And you want it to sound and feel natural, and that's what it's supposed to be. Even though I'll labor over them, a lot. And
sometimes
yeah.
it even reminds me of the Beatles, or tunes like that where you sort of get into a groove, but then they like there might be like a 2/4 beat,
Huh?
just because it makes sense with the lyrics or with the melody,
Mm,
you know,
mm.
and at times that reminds me of certain unexpected things in your tunes.
Wow, that's cool. Yeah, I think you think about the pauses between the phrases, and sometimes it can feel better to have two beats rather than four or whatever. And yeah, a lot of songs with vocals end up like that too. And you mentioned the Beatles. Yeah, I
Mm.
love the Beatles. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
you even wrote a tune called the Beatles.
I did. Yeah, and that's because, and it's not like a Beatles tune until uh, the last like two bars.
Yeah,
It is the do 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 do,
yeah.
which is and this is very sentimental on my part because that's the beginning of The first song that I ever really loved, there's "I Want to Hold Your Hand," which was their big hit. When they came on the Ed Sullivan Show, it was a big thing for anybody. Yeah, that's when I saw them, and that's when every kid in America saw them.
Everybody saw them at that time, right?
On one night,
yeah,
the entire country of America, we had been hearing them on the radio, and of course, this came for me right at the time when I was I just turned 12.
Yeah,
and my birthday was in December, and then in February they came on the TV, and every kid in America saw them, and we'd heard their song had been a hit for a couple of months, all those songs, and we knew the songs by heart, and then all of a sudden there they were in America. Yeah,
that's something that like a whole generation of a whole continent was connected by a TV.
Yeah, by this one thing. It's crazy. I mean, people in my age, and it's really the baby boomers, because there's a lot of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, your parents, same deal.
I guess so.
Yeah, maybe they're a little young.
My father is maybe 5 years younger than you.
Yeah, so that's a little young. They heard about it from their older siblings, But the people who were 12, that year, it completely changes, because when you're in puberty, everything that happens to you when your body is changing and you're becoming a human being, instead of a kid.
Yeah.
And then the music that we hear then is so important to us. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel so too. Actually, the music I heard when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
Kid also, but the teenager time, especially.
Absolutely.
It's really I can close my eyes and start a song from there. I can start like, My Funny Valentine by Miles before. I can start any song and it will ring in my head, because I've listened to that so much during that time.
Yeah, and when you hear it, when you first fall in love with music, you're just starting as a person. And yeah, that music, I'm still into the same stuff. I can't stop.
Yeah. Can you maybe talk about a little bit what you're looking for in a rhythm section? Because you've played with so many great rhythm sections, and of course you have some great associations with all the great guys. So is there like core values that you're looking for in a rhythm section? Again, bassist and drummer, but also piano player, bass and drums, or organ, whatever you feel like talking about.
I like people that make me sound good.
Yeah.
That's it. It's terrible. Isn't that awful?
Well,
I just want to sound good, and if they help me, I love them forever. And if they don't, no. Yeah, I mean that's you find somebody, some people that you play with, and it feels good. Feels good to them. It feels good to you, and you have fun, and you make music together, and it works. Yeah. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Whatever that is, and I could say other things, but it's too specific in a way, and not right to say I like somebody who plays this kind of music, or a bass player who plays this way, or a drummer plays this way. It's not quite that.
Yeah.
First of all, it's up to me to also conform my playing, but if it's too much work, it's, a pain in the neck. But, man, I mean, I love Bill Stewart. We played together for 30 years, and I think he's so great. And he does have this thing where he can play ahead of himself, on top of the music in a certain way, which it just gives the music this beautiful forward motion. And I'm always trying to get that myself, and playing with him, it really helps that to happen. And so I've gotten really hooked on his ability to do that, and so and also maybe in a bass player, somebody who enjoys playing the bottom part of the music.
Yeah.
Because I came up in this generation of when bass players were supposedly free of having to be a bass player. No longer had the restraints of having to play the old traditional bass part, which is great and everything. But, if I'm playing the treble part, it sure helps to have a full range of music where somebody else contributes to making a sound, and bass players who enjoy being the foundation and playing the bottom and playing the bass line, and finding variations on the bass line, and not getting in your way.
Mm-hmm.
And also grooving in the rhythm. And so all the guys that I've played with enjoy that. And I think that's a mature way to play that part,
Mm-hmm.
Drummers who like to groove, and people talk about, well, what do you like in a drummer? I think it turns out that I like really great musicians.
Yeah.
Like I said before about Jack, that he knows everything I'm playing. The really good drummers understand the architecture of the music.
Yeah. Yeah. How was it to find Bill Stewart? Bill Stewart. How did you find him?
Joe Lovano said, "Hey, check out this kid. I'm going to use him on my record." And Joe, who was my buddy, and we were playing together. And then Joe asked me to produce a record of his, so I produced his first record on Blue Note, and he brought in Bill Stewart, and I was like, "Holy shit!"
Mm-hmm.
And Bill was, early 20s and just magnificent. So I asked him to play, and he said, "Okay, I'll play with you."
Yeah, cool. And also your association with Larry Goldings goes a long way.
Yeah, and this came through Bill. He needed a place to rehearse and put his Hammond organ, and I had a studio in the basement of my building in Manhattan. And so Larry became my partner in this studio. Victor Lewis, the drummer, and Larry and I shared this place, and we started to play together back then.
Great.
Yeah.
You guys sound together, and also.
Yeah, Larry. I just can't speak. Larry and Bill both. Larry. Have you seen any of the things he does on his like his Facebook or Instagram posts? I love that stuff. Yeah, he's playing these weird keyboards, and just like a little 1 minute thing.
Yeah.
Larry's perfect, man. He's like yourself.
Thanks so much, man. There's this concept that everybody talks about of playing what you hear. We always go towards that direction of really playing what we hear.
Yeah.
But I doubt that.
What if you don't hear anything?
Wondering what you're doing then, actually.
Yeah. Well, no, for me, when I play what I just notice that when I play something, there's always another idea right after that in my head.
Yeah.
So I just try to mainly play that rather than playing some lick I had been thinking about playing, to slip in some hot shit that I've been working on. And sometimes you'll actually think of the hot shit you've been working on will be the thing that you think of, But so just trying to keep it honest, and it's like a conversation. Like right now, I'm thinking of something, and then I'm saying it. And there'll be a pause in between while I think of what the words are, and it's like that with playing. And then you can find your natural pauses like that. And sometimes you might want to accentuate the pause and extend it a little bit when you're playing with other people, especially. You listen to what they're playing, and then it all syncs it up, And those pauses, just like a conversation, are really important.
And what do you, as you said, what if you don't hear anything, or let's say you don't feel inspired, before playing, maybe?
Yeah.
How do you treat this situation?
Well, a lot of times before playing, I don't feel particularly inspired, but I have played long enough so that if I play one idea, another will follow. It might not be any good, but one will follow.
Right.
And I think we just get like that the more we've played. Miles said a great thing to me. And he said, when I use that space, that's because I just can't think of anything to play.
Yeah.
He said that, and I don't believe him completely, but I thought it was funny, because space was this thing that Miles certainly didn't invent, but would just use so well, and talked about got to play with space. It's almost like, you got to play major chords or something. Not that anybody would say that.
Yeah.
That's what's his name? Andre Previn.
Mm-hmm.
He wrote a book called No Minor Chords. That somebody, when he was writing for a film, some director said, "Okay, this doesn't work. I don't want you to write any more of those minor chords." But but Miles would talk about using space as just really important, and and we know he's right, don't we? And it turns out it's so natural that there's space all the time, but we never. A lot of musicians don't think about that because they're trying to fill up all the space, because that's hard.
It's hard, and it also takes courage.
Yeah. Hey, no, but we have to have space. I'm so happy when I do remember to use space.
I remember when Ornette died. I think it was before the second time we played, right before. And I remember you telling me how this music influenced you so much. And during that time, when when the news came that he died, you listened to a radio thing like where they put on nonstop.
Ornette, yeah,
nonstop Ornette. So I'm wondering, because I can especially thinking about your early records with Bill Stewart. I can really hear that influence, but I'd like you to talk about it a little bit. That what it meant.
We were copying Ornette Coleman, absolutely. And the other thing was, as well as Ornette, we copied the Keith Jarrett Quartet when he copied Ornette.
Yeah.
So he, and that was with Charlie Hayden in that band. No, I love, like all of us, love Ornette's music, and it's funny. I remember I told you I had like 10 jazz records, and Steve Swallow was on 2 of them. One of those records was Ornette, "Shape of Jazz to Come." So I knew I was, going to my guitar lesson and trying to play the chords to "How High the Moon," which were hard. That was my first jazz song that my guitar teacher said it's kind of a hard song to start with.
Yeah.
And he said, "Here, learn the chords to this," and then, so here I am trying to learn "How High the Moon," and I've got these jazz records, and one of them was Ornette,
Yeah.
and I loved it, but I had no idea that they were playing free or any of that. I just liked it. I loved the songs. So I was, familiar with that style of playing without even knowing, and I thought they were playing like a blues or something, but they weren't, when they blew. So I've been familiar with that style. And then, because that, and going to hear Ornette, I went to hear his group. First time I did hear him with Don Cherry and Blackwell and Charlie. They came. It was sort of a reunion, I think, of that band. Oh, it wasn't Don Cherry. It was Dewey, I think. Yes. And so that band reformed in the in like 1970 or something. And I heard them, and I just loved the tunes and was trying to check out playing like that. But also Paul Bley, I had his record, which had Steve Swallow on it, Footloose.
Yeah.
And he did it on piano. He was playing in that kind of free stuff on piano, and I love that. So I just love the way those guys played, and Keith Jarrett, yeah.
Yeah. Did you see Keith Jarrett's quartet?
Yes, that band with Charlie and Paul Motion and Dewey Redman. Yeah, they came. So when I went up to Berkeley the first year, 1970, they had a lot of great music at this club called the Jazz Workshop. Miles with Jack DeJohnette and Keith Jarrett, and then shortly after that, Keith Jarrett's quintet, and Ornette came too. Yeah, wow. I think it was all within a year's time.
Did you ever play with Ornette?
No.
But you met him?
Met him once, yeah. He said, "I'm going to start a harmonic band with you and Tom Harrell and Lee Konitz." And what the hell? Man, how could that be? And it never happened.
Wow, what a band!
But he said that to me. But we had this wonderful dinner with a bunch of musicians at a festival, and Ornette talked a lot and talked about harmonics and was just really nice. You know, it was just a sweetheart. You know, and we were just there all lapping it up. You know, listening to the master. Yeah.
Right, in terms of sound check, hearing everybody in different stages, you know. So, what's the most important thing for you to get the sound so that you feel comfortable each time, no matter where you play?
I think the most important thing is to not expect to be comfortable.
Mm.
You know, we have to be ready for that. You want to be comfortable and you do everything you can. You know, you go and you have the monitors from the sound check to, you know, be like what you hear the other instruments. And I think it's important to try and just be in a situation where you can hear the other instruments and hear your sound in a nice way. And I like it when the amp is the one I like, you know, and it's working properly. Because I don't bring my own amp. I use a rental amp, you know. And I like the setup to be where I can hear as much as I can of the other guys acoustically. But then my amp has to be kind of away from the other guys, or else they hear way too much of me. Um, and it's you know, generally it's not the perfect situation. And then some rooms have terrible sound. You know, I've never understood why people will have a concert in their town and will pay all this money to bring a group there and then have a PA, hire a PA system and make their big concert in a room where the acoustics are just, you can't hear anything. You know, sometimes we have to play in those kind of rooms,
Yeah,
and it's just the way it is. So I really think the best thing for me is to not expect it to be right.
yeah,
Because if it really is going to be right the way I like it, then it's, you know, it's going to have to be specific. So I have to be pretty giving in that way. And then I just go and play anyway. And after a few songs, usually you can get used to anything.
yeah.
You know, I know there's this one club in Boston where we've played for like 25 years. It's the only club, it's the best club there, you know. And the sound is terrible, you know. And we usually play like 3 nights or something in this club. And the first set, every time it's like, oh my God, this is so awful. And then by the last night, I don't notice anymore. You
Yeah.
get used to it.
Hmm.
But hopefully, you get so that if you're forgiving enough of the sound in yourself, then you can have more fun, and then you get used to it quicker, you know.
Hmm.
But man, I've tried everything, you know, and I've played too loud so many times myself, you know, to going too hard, and you know, sometimes you have to play under. It's hard for me to do that as a guitar player, you know. But having the electric guitar work in acoustic jazz is a challenge.
Hmm.
You know, to be the only guy up there with a really an electric instrument. You know, even the bass that's coming through the amp is acoustic and working in the context of an acoustic trio or with horns or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I think, and then I remember I played a gig with Dr. John, the Night Tripper, who I was a big fan of, and I was really checking him out. You know, the first few times I played with him, and I remember once they brought him like this just terrible electric piano, and there was no acoustic piano or anything. It was just this piece of crap, you know. And he was like, "Okay."
Mm.
You know, I was thinking, man, you're a big star. You could like pitch a bitch, you know. And he even said something like, "That's okay. I'm flexible." I think he said, you know. And I thought, wow, he's got it down. And it ended up being fine, you know. I mean, it's not like he was playing like Rubinstein or something, or it wasn't Horowitz, you
Mm.
know. But he plays the hell out of an acoustic instrument, you know, and uses that. And now he was cool on playing on some really bad keyboard.
Mm. But I've noticed that with you too, like staying very, very positive all the time.
Well, it's like we have no choice, isn't it?
Very
You
inspiring
know?
to see.
Yeah. Remember that one gig we played? For me, it was terrible sound.
No, but I remember, and I remember
Yeah.
throwing your hearing aid out.
Threw it away. $5,000. Just threw it away. No, but I had to. Yeah, it was just not working. Yeah, that was a rough one. But
Yeah,
the rest were all good on the tour, but that one was challenging.
but
And there's always going to be something like that, right?
sure. But it was really amazing to see how positive you stayed, and also how amazing you played in this circumstance where you obviously didn't feel, you know,
Comfortable, yeah.
to see how you made it work musically between us as humans. You didn't lay it on us like
Yeah.
the happen, guys.
That's good because I tell you, Pablo, I've tried to do it the other way where I was have a little shit fit, and that's terrible
Mm,
because then nobody has a good time,
mm,
and then it's a real waste of your life, to do that
mm.
because we have a chance to celebrate, uh, and so it's better to try and do that, and some nights are not like that. We all have rough ones. I mean, it's never going to be that every night is great. It's just never going to happen. I thought at one point, every time I think I have a great night, I think, I finally got it down. Now, okay, smooth sailing from here on out. But then something turns around and kicks you in the ass, and invariably it happens. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's true.
And that's something I learned from the elders. I learned that from playing with these guys. I mean, Miles, I mean, he as mercurial and he was supposed to be, he was every gig he was into it,
Hmm.
and it would be all kinds of weird stuff happening, and big funny sounding places. He just played anyway. He got into it, no matter what.
Hmm. Are there any other pieces of advice or lessons you got from him that you still think about when you play, or that you also?
All no, I think about it. Okay, let's play with space. Don't play too loud. Don't play, play a little longer. Play a little shorter. Make space for the other guys. I have to remind myself every time.
Hmm.
That's part of it. I don't think we can ever not use our brains. And we use our brains to remind ourselves of the things that we know work. But at the same time, if we're too busy reminding ourselves, then we're not in the moment.
Hmm.
So I have to remind myself to be in the moment, and then I have to try and stay in the moment. Like by remembering to not think, which is impossible, right? Because you're remembering something, that means you're thinking. I don't know.
Don't think about the blue elephant, and you know it.
Yeah. Oh, there he is. Anything but the blue elephant.
Yeah. How did you feel when Miles started, when he started having Gil Evans transcribe your?
Oh man. First of all, just the fact that Miles would have Gil, one of the giants of modern music,
Yeah.
and they would say, Gil, write this out. And I was like, what? And but Gil would say, okay. And then he would like, I remember Gil sitting there with headphones. It was the early Walkman
Yeah.
tape recorder. They just had the Walkman with a cassette in it. And he was like listening to something Miles wanted him to write out. At the record date, he'd be right there sitting at the piano. We'd be setting up. He'd have his headphones on, and then he'd have written something out for Miles, and um, he was just helping his friend Miles out,
Hmm.
and trying to make something happen. And it was part of their thing of what what's the most real stuff, and the most real stuff is the when you're really playing, and Miles was taping the band, and he had also, I remember, made a cassette of himself practice playing and had given it to Gil just by himself, and it said, Gil, this part here is good, write that out. And then he would do it with us too when we were just jamming at a rehearsal, playing. It wasn't ever jamming. We were playing something he wanted us to play at a rehearsal or from a gig, and then he would have Gil write things out, and he, I had only been in the band probably a year, and then he started to have Gil write out my stuff as well as his stuff to become the heads, and it was a great, ego boost. It made me feel good to have the masters be into it, but and he did the same for the other guys in the band too.
Yeah, but actually now you're, as you just told me, you're going back to that stuff. Recording yourself.
Yeah.
And writing tunes out of that.
Yeah, and Zawinul said that that's what he did exclusively. And the times that I met him, pardon me.
That's a cool thought to think, like, In a Silent Way or Directions or these tunes. They came out of improvisations from him.
Yeah.
Cool thought.
And I'm not sure if, I'm pretty sure that maybe Miles told everybody that that's the way to do it, I don't know. But you know what? I mean, it's so much a part of jazz, really. I mean, when you hear about Duke Ellington, putting the stuff together at recording dates, it's taking a riff, and using that. If we think about it too much, sometimes nothing gets happening, but it's sort of the Miles and these people were so into spontaneous music being this great thing, to get out of your own way and let the music come out, and then something good will happen.
And it's beautiful.
Yeah, and it's so natural too. We all kind of know it intuitively, that's really important. And maybe, in the 19th century with the great composers, they knew about that too, but they didn't have tape recorders. They didn't have access to recording. So they must have, who knows, I got this idea. They probably got really fast at writing it out,
Yeah, there are great stories about Beethoven and Bach, improvising.
They say they must have improvised, yeah.
Yeah, and there's a lesson in there, talking about improvising compositions,
Yeah, yeah.
There's a lesson to be learned there, I guess.
Absolutely, and can you imagine if we had recordings of that?
Do you think recording changes your playing in a way? Being aware that you're being recorded.
Yeah, well, yes, in a good way. You realize that the deepest subtlety of your playing will be captured, so you don't overstate. You can play subtly, and that helps us to develop. And on the bad part is you'd be too self-conscious, right? Because you're recording. Yeah,
you want to get it right for that one time.
Yeah. You're trying too hard to get it right. I mean, so much happens in the 2 hours into the gig, right, when you're starting to not be so aware. And
can you elaborate on that? I'm interested. You're saying the interesting stuff happens maybe 2 hours into the gig.
Well, that's what's supposed to be the case. It's not always like that. Sometimes you're good from the get-go, and then at the end, the energy's gone or something. The traditional wisdom is that the second set is better because everybody's looser, and but I've also had it happen that right in the beginning, I feel like the band is there and you're there in a way and present in a way that maybe later in the night it's different, so you can never tell. We just have to take the moments when they come.
How many sets are you going to play tonight?
7 sets tonight. We play from 6 o'clock to 4 a.m. Yeah. No, we play the late show. 10:30 to midnight.
I actually I learned a big lesson also with you doing set lists. And also the way you put sets together, because that was actually a very big turning point for me, because me and my maybe European heady, I don't know, I can't really explain it, but I used to put together sets looking for a homogenic, like a one sound, one thing that the
right, always like a symphony.
Like I always wanted to have a red line throughout the whole thing, But in a way, I don't know if you're aware of, you did kind of show me this, but you showed me, or at least that's what I got out of seeing you putting together sets. Um, I realized that the repertoire, the tunes, are just different environments that we as the musicians or the protagonists go through. So I saw you changing it up, changing the feel up by saying, after we played a maybe a very heady Pablo Held tune with a lot of chords, you just say, let's just play a blues now, right?
Yeah.
And at first I thought, wow, a blues now? We just
Yeah.
it's known right now, right? I didn't want to stay in that zone, but maybe I didn't have the courage to go somewhere else. I don't know.
Yeah.
You just said, let's play a blues. And this is a big lesson I got from you, to have a balance in the set of different things.
Yeah, well, that's another way to do it, I guess, I mean, the other way would be to have them, and I've always been, up tempo, then a ballad, then something different kind of up tempo, and change it up,
Mhm.
But I think when I was playing with you, Pablo, I just wanted something easy, between the hard tunes,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it makes total sense. And I
yeah,
didn't think of it that way. I didn't
yeah.
think about that. And that also made us play differently than on those tunes.
Yes. Ah, yeah. But it's, the set list is really important, and sometimes you want to change it right in the middle. Say, hey, wait, let's do this other one.
Yeah, you did that too. You did that too.
Yeah,
That's also a sign of you being in the moment.
I guess so. Yeah.
Did it change with Miles or with Herbie? Did they change the set list, or was it?
Well, I mean, I think Herbie probably would have changed the set list had it been his normal group. But when I toured with Herbie, it was a special project, and we were playing the songs from the record to the new standards. So it was all these pop tunes that he had arranged to be jazz tunes. And we just played those songs. So we didn't have as much of a repertoire to choose from.
Hmm.
And with Miles, he played the same kind of, 80% of the songs would be the same every night. He had some, songs that would just come in and out once in a while. He wouldn't play every night. Um, but I remember with Miles, we just played concerts. He was the biggest thing in jazz. It was always concerts, never clubs. And one time we played a concert where we had to play two sets. They had to have an intermission. And so Miles just like played 45 minutes the beginning of the same concert that he played every night and just stopped and then came back and started again and played the second half. And it worked fine.
Hmm. So what's next for you after this tour?
I have a CD I made with a quartet with some friends of yours, Bill Stewart, Vicente Archer on the bass, and Gerald Clayton on keyboards.
Cool.
And we had fun making that. We did some gigs before, and then we went in the studio. And I wrote some new tunes. And so those guys will come with me, and we do a bunch of gigs for the rest of the year.
Great. And for next year, is there another band coming up?
No, that's the one for next year for the beginning, and then I'll think of something else after that.
Right.
Whatever they let me do. Oh, I have some solo gigs too,
Wow.
which I can't do, Pablo. It's impossible to play solo guitar concerts. It's impossible. Only Segovia and those guys can do it if they no. But I'm going to try anyway, and so I'm thinking about that and trying to practice and
Great.
figure out something to do. We'll see. I've done a couple of solo gigs and
And the solo cadenzas you do at the end of tunes. That's kind of your.
yeah, those are fine, but you can't do those for 53 minutes. I have to do
Always
some.
when I listen to you, that's one of the moments where I go like, I could take this forever. I could.
That's because you don't have to play.
No, I don't think so. No, also when I see you, when I see concerts of you.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So that's one aspect. That's we'll see. I'm trying to figure this out.
How are you figuring it out?
Well, what I'm working on now may not actually work, but with guitar, how it goes chink. What a guitar really does easily is play rhythm guitar, which is like just the chords, chink, 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 in country and western or in blues or anything, as well as jazz. See, piano, you can go chink, chink, chink and have another thing happening at the same time. And that's what is really hard to do on guitar. There are some guys that can kind of do it. There's one incredible guy, and I forget his name. He's a young guy, Italian name, but he lives in New York. Anyway, this guy and the guitar players will have heard of him because he's phenomenal at playing jazz, solo jazz guitar. So anyway, I just think if the chink, chink, chink goes, and then you play a line, you don't hear the chink, chink on a record when the rhythm, so you hear mainly the line. So I thought I can go chink, chink, chink. I can fill in my own spaces with chink, chink, chink.
Yeah.
And then it'll almost sound like the chink, chink, chink keeps happening under my line. So I'm kind of working on that. We'll see.
That's clever.
And then just playing by myself,
Yeah.
maybe I'll come up with something.
Yeah. And
We'll
also
see.
when you just play lines, I can hear all the chords.
Yeah, hopefully.
And other role models, like do you actively go out and then listen to guitar players playing solo, or do you also?
With solo guitar, I don't think there's that much in the jazz idiom. So I try and stay away. I mean, there are some great musicians like Bill Frisell plays solo, and I'm scared to go listen to any of that because I'm afraid I'll copy it. And I've heard Pat Metheny play by himself when it was marvelous. Just maybe like one tune and stuff. But those guys, I've already copied enough from them. I don't want to ever listen to them again. And
Ralph Towner.
He's one of the great solo guitarists.
Yeah.
And he, can use the classical technique.
Yeah.
That's a whole other thing. Yeah. I remember his solo record. That's one that I really copped from the one where he, on ECM years ago, where he plays Nardis.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
And I also had another one. Back when I was a Berkeley student, before when Oregon was just starting, there was a bootleg of him playing at some party by himself. Yeah, it was great. Yeah, so, and then there's, Joe Pass, who everybody knows as the great solo guitarist, and it was magnificent, but he's got such a different technique and thing from me that I wouldn't try to play like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, something else would be good, We'll see.
When I play solo, I try to sometimes not listen to piano players play solo, but listen to orchestras or string quartets or stuff like that.
Yes. Well, just listen to music, right? Yeah. And not think too much about your instrument, and certainly, at this point, I try not to play like other people, even though I'm fascinated with the way other people play the guitar. If they're good, and there are a lot of really great guitarists, that I hear that you can't, you can't help but be influenced somewhat by it. But I try to not do it because if I'll just let my own thing come out, but the days of like transcribing are over for me. But I think they influence me anyway, just when I hear them,
Sure.
just even like once, like, oh, wow.
Yeah. I think it's also that sometimes that moment of realization of, that's possible.
Yes, absolutely. Just to think that it's possible.
That's enough sometimes, right?
That's enough. Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes you have to go deep and really check it out because you might not get it at the first moment. But sometimes that just that's okay to do, or that's possible to do. That then it can get into the back of your head, and then you can not think about it for maybe, and then it'll come out in a different way, or lead to something else.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, John, I have to go pick up my kids.
Now you got to go.
Now
I just saw your clock, and they're waiting for you. So thank you.
Thank you so much for doing this. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Well, it's easy, right? Because we're just hanging out like we always do.
Yeah.
And I really look forward to the next time we get to play. Absolutely, Pablo. Bye, Pablo.
Bye-bye. I like a drummer who keeps the form.
Keep the form. You gotta know the form. You kids today, you don't know form.
No.
You gotta know form.